Welding an oxyacetylene torch is still a new art, but today engineers are placing more and more confidence in this process of joining metals together. In the past few years, oxyacetylene welding has become an almost universal tool in industry. Torch welding is now used extensively for making repairs, in the foundry for filling up blowholes and coal shuts, in factories, mills, and shops of all kinds to fix up damaged equipment and machines. Employed in the production of a variety of metal parts. Thousands of miles of pipelines have been constructed with a blowtorch and rod. Steel containers for the oil industry are welded so that they can stand more pressure than ever before. In many fields, oxyacetylene welding is being used to make smooth, strong, inexpensive joints in metal. Welding is not just another trade. It is an art, a highly specialized art that demands knowledge of the various mechanical processes and the action of metals when heat is applied to them, as well as skill in handling the blowtorch and the filler rod. It is important that the beginning welder get thoroughly acquainted with the torch, the two gases and their containers, and all the other equipment that he is to use. It is the very first step in learning how to do oxyacetylene welding. The next step is to get acquainted with the kind of clothes to wear and the reasons for wearing them. A coverall suit with tight-fitting collar gives good protection against sparks. It is best to wear gloves at all times so as to become accustomed to their weight and feel. A cap with the visor pulled down this way will protect the neck against wild sparks. High shoes with thick soles are recommended for the same reason. And never do welding of any kind without goggles. Now we'll see how to set up the equipment, turn on the gases, adjust their pressures, and light the torch. The first thing to do after getting the gas containers in place and removing their protective caps is to crack each cylinder valve. That is, open each valve for an instant. The rush of gas blows out any dirt that might be in the nozzles. The gas pressure regulators are then connected to their respective cylinders and the nuts screwed up tightly with a close-fitting wrench. Both the oxygen and the acetylene hose lines are now attached to the outlet nipples of the regulators. The hose on the acetylene regulator is red. Its nut has left-hand threads. The hose on the oxygen regulator is green, and its nut has right-hand threads. You'll find matching marks on the nuts too. Look for them. But above all, remember those colors. They are standard. Red for acetylene, oxygen. Put a little muscle behind that wrench when you tighten those nuts too. Release the regulator adjusting screws and then open the cylinder valves slowly. Never open the cylinder valves if the regulator screws have not been released. The two sections of hose must be blown out each time they are used, since it is important that no dirt or grit get into the torch. So hold the hose well away from the body and open first one regulator with the regulator screw and then the other. In this way, you can blow out both the regulator and the hose at the same time. But don't blow out both hoses at once, and don't get the acetylene near a fire, or you may finish this course where welders don't need blowtorches. In connecting the hose to the torch, remember your colors. Red hose to the acetylene needle valve, green hose to the oxygen needle valve. Blow out the torch handle, opening but one valve at a time and then closing it. This takes out any grit in the passages. Screw the proper size tip into the torch handle and make sure that it's in there tightly enough so the joints won't leak gas. To adjust the working pressures of the two gases, open the acetylene torch needle valve and adjust the acetylene regulator to the required working pressure. This pressure will be shown in tables, or the instructor can give you the proper figures. Now close the needle valve. The process for adjusting the oxygen working pressure is the same. In lighting the torch, hold the torch well away from the body and open the acetylene needle valve. Light the gas with a spark lighter, keeping your hand well away from the resulting flame. Don't be afraid to be careful. Tough guys burn just as easily as sissies. Now open the oxygen needle valve and adjust the flame. There are three kinds of flame that the welder can get out of his torch, and the flame must be adjusted properly before he can go ahead and weld. The neutral flame, with its brilliant white inner cone and its faintly luminous envelope flame, is obtained when about 1 part of acetylene is being mixed with 1 part of oxygen. When the neutral flame is held so the luminous cone nearly touches the metal, steel will get red hot and melt quickly. The molten metal will be clean and clear and will flow easily, like syrup. The liquid steel will lie quietly beneath the flame. When the proportions of the gases are changed, changes take place in the flame too. If there is more acetylene than oxygen in the mixture, as there is here, the resulting flame is called a carburizing or reducing flame. It has an inner cone and a bluish envelope flame, with another cone of a whitish color between them. When the reducing flame hits steel and melts it, the molten metal boils and is cloudy. It is not clear like the molten metal under the neutral flame. When the flame contains more oxygen than the 1-to-1 ratio, the flame becomes harsh and may even roar. This is called the oxidizing flame. Its inner cone is shorter than the inner cone of the neutral flame, and it usually has a purplish color rather than the brilliant white of the neutral flame's inner cone. The oxidizing flame will give excess foaming and sparking when steel is melted with it. All three flames, the neutral, the carburizing, and the oxidizing flames, can be either harsh or soft. A harsh flame, like this, results from too much gas pressure. It will spatter the molten metal and make good welding almost impossible. On the other hand, the soft flame, resulting when the pressure is just right, lets the molten metal lie quiet and so gives the welder complete control of the welding process all the time. Notice that little white bead or bubble bobbing along ahead of the torch. That's called the eye, and it's present in all good welding. The soft neutral flame is the one most commonly used in welding, so the operator must learn to recognize it at once and be able to adjust for it readily. A good way to do this is to start with a flame that has an excess of acetylene, the reducing flame. Then close the blowpipe acetylene valve very slowly. As the valve closes, the secondary cone will get smaller and smaller. The neutral flame is formed just as this cone disappears entirely. Only lots of practice will give you the skill necessary for this operation. Now that we've seen what kind of flame to use, let's use it. First, of course, we'll have to arrange the welding table and place the sheet of steel where we can reach it easily. The first operation will be making flat ripples on steel sheets, as this will show the proper way to handle the torch. What's wrong? The flame snapped out. That means that the acetylene pressure is too low. It must be increased, but not too much. Too much pressure with the acetylene will make the flame burn a short distance away from the torch's tip. The acetylene pressure will have to be reduced at the needle valve to give the soft neutral flame. Here's how a trained right-handed welder holds his torch. Loosely and in a comfortable position, at a point on the handle where the hose nearly balances the overhanging tip. Gripping too tightly will tire the muscles and make the arm tremble. Remember, if a job seems too tough and tiring, chances are you're not doing it right. Hold the torch like this, with the tip of the cone tilted sidewise so that it points to the left at an angle of between 45 degrees and 50 degrees to the steel plate. If you hold the flame too straight up and down, or too close to the work, the torch will pop out because of overheating. Now lower the cone tip until it's about 3/16 of an inch from the steel. Hold the torch steady until a small puddle of molten metal begins to form under the heat. As soon as the puddle of melted steel forms, start to move the flame across the sheet of metal, from right to left. Make the puddle, formed in this way, about 3/16 of an inch wide. As fast as the steel becomes well melted, move the torch gradually forward. At the same time, of course, you must keep swinging the flame from side to side. This combination of motions will give you progressive semicircles. That is, each semicircle will be advanced slightly. Continue this uniform motion, keeping the torch the same distance above the metal at all times. The speed of the forward motion will be determined by the molten puddle. You can't go ahead any faster or slower than this puddle. As you get near the edge of the sheet, it's best to raise the torch just a little. In this way, you'll avoid burning holes in the stock. It's especially important to do this when you're working with thin sheet metal. Here's what a completed row of accurately formed ripples should look like. The line of ripples should be straight, the ripples of even texture and width, and the heat zone should be the same on both sides of the ripple. All right, we can make good ripples. So we're ready to try something harder, beading. Running a bead merely means depositing metal from the welding rod when you're welding in a single direction. It's harder than making ripples because you have to control both the torch and the rod at the same time. Some welders prefer to use a straight welding rod. Others work with it bent at a right angle, like this. We'll use the bent rod just to show how it's done. Start the welding operation just as when running a ripple. That is, make a small puddle of molten steel on the plate. While the steel is melting to form this puddle, bring the tip of the welding rod down into the outer envelope of the flame. This will heat the rod's tip, so that by the time the puddle of molten steel is formed on the plate, the welding rod should be almost at its melting point. Just before the rod begins to melt and form drops of liquid metal, dip the tip below the surface of the puddle. At the same time, flick the flame up along the rod for a short distance. Then, as you swing the torch back toward the rear of the puddle, withdraw the rod from the molten metal, but keep it in the outer envelope of flame. In this way, the rod is kept just below its melting point, but when it is dipped into the puddle, it will melt quickly. Steel welding rod is always deposited this way. Never hold the rod over the puddle and let drops of liquid metal from the rod fall into the puddle. This faulty technique causes splattering and also allows the rod metal to combine with oxygen in the air. That is, causes oxidation. Perhaps you'll have trouble at first when you try to keep the rod and the torch moving correctly at the same time. But this skill is absolutely necessary for good welding. Practice till you have it down cold. Here's what may happen if you don't time the rod movement correctly. The welding rod will stick to the work. If this happens, don't try to pull the rod loose. Concentrate the flame on the weld until you can lift the rod away easily. Running a bead like this is one of the basic skills of welding. You can't be a good welder until you have mastered it so thoroughly that you don't even have to think of the operation while you're doing it, any more than a big leaguer with a 400 batting average has to think about how to place his feet or grip his war club. Now let's see some examples of beading, good and bad. That's a good bead there. The width and height of the bead are uniform. It shows regularity and has a neat appearance. This bead isn't good. In fact, it's lousy. Look at the holes. Burned clear through the sheet of steel, and the rod was melted so fast that its metal spread over too much area. These are all results of using too much heat on the base metal. And here's an example of a weld that wasn't heated enough. As a result, the rod was melted and dropped onto comparatively cold base metal. Welds that are heated too much or too little won't have much strength. It's quitting time, and here's a good routine to follow. Close the acetylene valve on the torch first, then the oxygen valve. Close the acetylene cylinder valve, then the oxygen. Drain the acetylene line by opening the torch acetylene valve. Release the adjusting screw on the acetylene regulator. Then close the torch acetylene valve. Go through the same process to drain the oxygen line. It's always well to inspect the tip of the torch too. This tip is all right. The welder knew how to use it properly. He didn't scrape scale off the welded bead with it or dip it into the molten puddle. If you have to clean grit or dirt out of the tip, don't use a file or other hard piece of metal. Use something softer than the tip, or you'll enlarge the opening and won't get a properly shaped flame. Always hang it up like this when through work, and be sure the torch is properly protected. Good equipment, well cared for, and good technique well applied will assure good work.